Now let's first explore what needs to be set up to work with service contracts. To explore the contract setup, you need to have a look at the service management setup window where you can find the general setup for service. Then we go specifically look into service contract groups, service contract account groups, and finally service contact templates. So let's start with the general service management setup. And the first thing to check or to configure is, do we have number ranges set up and configured for service contracts? So we need to navigate to the numbering fast tab, and here you can configure number ranges for your service contracts, contract templates, contract invoices, and contract credit memo numbers. Also important is the prepay posting document numbers, and we will explain that later on, but this is related to prepaid service contracts. Next, you need to open the Contracts Fast tab. And this Fast tab only includes service contract related parameters. Now, two basic parameters to start with that are really important are the contract value calculation method and the contract value percentage. Now, the value of a service contract is made up out of the contractual values of each of the service items on the lines of such a contract. So it is the sum of the contractual values of each service item in that contract. Now, how does a service item get a contractual value? And that is what is specified here. So if you have a service item, it will get a contractual value. That contractual value can be calculated either based on the unit price of that service item or on the unit cost of such a service item. And then it is based on a percentage of that price. So it is, for instance, in this case, 50% of the unit price of a service item. That 50% is the contractual value of that service item. So if you would later on place that service item on a service contract, then 50% of the unit price will be added to the contractual value of the contract. And the contractual value of the contract is actually the value that will be invoiced to the customer for the SLA. So as an example, I made a new service item, a coffee machine. And in the coffee machine, I have specified that the sales unit cost was 100 and the sales unit price was 1000. And by consequence, I get a default contract cost of 15 and a default contract value of 150. So why 150? Because 50% of the unit price is the contract value for this service item. And that also means that later on, if I'm going to put this coffee machine on a contract, that it will use this value 150, which is 15% of the sales unit price. That 150 will be used for the value of the contract. So these two parameters, contract value calculation method and contract value percentage, are crucial if you want to work with contracts. Now it's also important to check, for instance, this one, contract service order max days. And in this example, it's set to 365. Now this is the maximum number of days that you can use as the date range for a batch job that will create service orders for service contracts. So in this example, if you're going to use that batch job, the range between the starting and ending date for that job can only be 365 days. So the batch job will create automatically service orders for service items in your contract that needs service. But we will discuss that later on. But do remember then that there is something like a max number of days on which you can have that batch job work. You also have here a check mark for use contract cancellation reason. So that means that if you want to cancel a contract, you are obliged to provide a cancellation reason. And here you also see register contract changes. That will allow you to track all the changes that are happening on your contract. The next 4 are all related to standard text that you can use on your service contract documents. We just reviewed the service contract parameters in the service management setup window. We're now going to have a look how to set up service contract groups and what you can do with them. You can find the service contract groups by searching or by going to the setup. Now, for what reason do you use service contracts? Well, contract groups. You can group together contracts that are related. So you can do this for statistical purposes or reporting purposes. Now let's have a look. If we go to the setup, you can define as many service contract groups as you want. You can give them a code and a description. And you can also use them for this discount on contract orders only. So if you want to limit contract discount to service orders that are directly created from the contract or with the contract batch job. Now that we know what service contract groups are, let's have a look at service contract account groups. Again, you can find your service contract account groups by searching or by directly going to the contract management setup. Now, you can again configure these service contract account groups yourself. You can give it a name and a description. And service contract account groups are used for the service invoicing of service contracts, and they are used for the different financial processing of prepaid and non-prepaid accounts. So here you see the prepaid contract accounts and the non-prepaid contract accounts. So you have, you see here, you can specify for both prepaid and non-prepaid. You can specify accounts here. Non-prepaid are typically the normal accounts, and prepaid accounts are actually temporarily accounts. So if you're going to process invoices from prepaid contracts, service contracts, then they need financially to be processed to temporary accounts. And that is what you can do with these service contract account groups. And let's have a look now at our last setup part for service contracts. We're going to have a look at service contract templates. Now, a service contract template is a predefined layout for service contracts. It includes all the necessary and most frequently used service contract details. So let's have a look. If we open it up, you see the list here of service contract templates. You can, of course, make as many new ones as you want. Let's have a look. If we open one up, then you see that you can specify all kinds of parameters that are necessary to set up contracts. You have general parameters and parameters specifically for invoicing. In the general parameters, you can see things like the default service period, the default response time hours, for instance. You can also see here all kinds of things for invoicing, like is it prepaid or not, for instance. What is the invoicing period? And also, very important, the service contract account group. Remember, these were the groups that we are going to use for different financial processing between prepaid and non-prepaid accounts. And of course, that is very relevant here in the templates. If you are going to use a prepaid contract or a non-prepaid contract, then you have immediately the relationship here with the service contract account groups as well.